Good afternoon, welcome to the April 30th edition of Sports on Sunset. I'm Puck.
Suck it, Tanya.
Yeah. The reason we're here today is we are making a return, or adding on to the topic of last week. Last week we were talking about why poor planning annually leads to bad franchises. And after the NFL draft, we have people, everybody's optimistic at the NFL draft, except for maybe a team or two, like, oh, this is my first round pick or whatever. Jets fans. Yeah. But with that said, there are teams out there who may have even had a good draft, but they didn't fill needs. There are teams out there where your optimism is absolutely ill-advised. You should not buy tickets. You should not buy season tickets. And yes, this is a strike. Oakland, please don't call me. So with that said, let's get moving. Who had a draft, for example, in your opinion, that had a good draft, but they didn't really address needs that will help them this year?
Cleveland.
How so?
Their first pick, they picked a defensive end. When what they should have did was pick.
Do you like the defensive end they took?
He's actually not a bad team. Athletic, fast, strong, tall, right? Mm-hmm. But what Cleveland needs is a time machine to go back and draft Jim Brown. Because that's the only way.
You don't like Trent Richardson?
No.
Why not?
He's going to get hurt real soon. Real soon.
And why do you say that?
Because of his running style and the fact that they still don't have blocking.
Well, then would you consider this to be a better draft had they gone offensive line?
Well, certainly.
Okay.
Like they could have had a better draft, but they had a pretty good draft.
So you're saying their big holes are on the offensive line. Did you take a look at the rest of the draft? Do you know how they did in terms of offensive line?
Like I think they pick a right guard, I believe.
Yeah.
A right guard in college.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like the guy is going to be strictly pass blocking. Like he's a pass blocking guard. Mm-hmm. Not for the running.
But what you're basically saying is, in terms of center, the other guard position, and two tackles,
they didn't adjust. They didn't do what they needed to do.
Here's why this matters, guys. You might have noticed that Tebow got clipped yesterday. Now, this is not a rip on Tim Tebow. It's simply illustrating a point that's going to happen. There will be a massive number of cuts coming in the upcoming weeks in the NFL. The reason for that is because teams need at least $4 to $5 million in cap space to sign their draft picks. There's going to be 8 to 10, maybe even a dozen teams that need to do some serious cutting in order to do that. Which means that if you have holes now, there's going to be additional holes very soon. I want to give two teams that were recently playoff teams that I think are dead out of the gate, and in many fans' opinion are still pretty good. I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to make the playoffs this year.
Really?
Yeah, because they're switching to a 3-4 defense, switching to a 4-3.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
4-3. They have 10 guys without names at defensive tackle. They did not draft a defensive tackle. And oh, by the way, the reason I'm bringing this up, this was the year for brawn over skill. And out of all those draft picks, you don't address a massive need. I mean, I see the Giants reestablishing their running game and running right up the guts. They didn't get significant pressure on Robert Griffin III, assuming he comes back and he'll run. I don't like it that he runs, but whatever, that's another topic for another time. I'm seeing teams run right into the Dallas defense.
They're going to fall apart when Philadelphia comes to town.
Yeah.
So Kelly's offense.
Well, I mean, yeah, but even then, the Eagles don't run, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Now, and again, I mean, part of the problem for Dallas was, I believe it was Josh Brent, who was arrested for killing his teammate last year, allegedly killing his teammate last year.
Car accident.
Right, so that was a defensive tackle right there. Another defensive tackle gets arrested. So two guys, boom, boom, who were starters, boom, boom, gone. 4-3 defense? No. And who are they going to sign? I mean, the draft was a place to address that.
Yeah, they might end up getting Urlacher.
Yeah, but he's not playing defensive tackle.
No, they'll play linebacker.
Yeah, he's not playing defensive tackle.
Yeah.
And if you push that center, you're still getting you're through the gut, you're still getting 3 to 4 yards before your linebacker can make an impact consistently. Name another team aside from Cleveland where you're sitting there going, oh man, if you would only address your needs, you could be playoff ready. But they didn't.
The Bears.
I know, to be honest with you, I would go along with you on that.
Seriously, they needed another. Jay Cutler's in the final. This isn't just my hatred of what they've done, but they needed to bring in a new quarterback because Jay Cutler is in his final year of his contract. His contract is up after this year. They're not going to renew him. So it's better to have drafted a quarterback in the early rounds that you can basically have an understudy as and have that guy fill the role next year. And Mike Glennon was the right quarterback after E.J. Manuel was taken in the first round. And they didn't address that need. They got another offensive lineman that is probably going to underperform like Chris Williams did, probably Long's kind of long. And that is a huge issue.
I think the long kids can play football though.
Well, they can, defensively.
Yeah, well.
This is one that has to block. Sure, he probably had to block his brothers, but that's not an issue. The Bears need someone that's going to be able to be there for the next 10 years at quarterback. And it would have been great if they drafted one in the early round so Cutler could be basically.
Would you have been okay with, say, Barkley at quarterback?
Barkley,
in the sense that if you think about it, Chicago is not really traditionally is not really designed to go like this,
well,
throw it all over the place.
Not traditionally designed, but apparently this new coach he's a passing quarterback. As with the Canadian Football League games, he's a passing quarterback. He's a quarterback.
Would
Barkley? I actually would have.
Yeah.
I'm not big on USC quarterbacks. They don't have a great track record, but maybe Trestman could have worked with him and made him an actual decent quarterback.
Here's a team that I think a lot of people here like because, unfortunately, without our own football team, there's a lot of front running in LA. Detroit.
Yeah. Who did they get in the first round? They got.
Here's my problem with them. They should have went. They still have gaping holes in both lines, with the exception of.
They got an offensive line, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, they needed. Here's the thing. They didn't address offensive tackle, particularly left tackle.
Yeah.
The reason that matters is the Detroit Lions throw long.
Yeah.
They don't just throw, they throw long. You need time to get, even with Calvin Johnson, you need time for Calvin Johnson. He's fast. He's not that fast.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see the Bears reaching him. I can see the Vikings. I thought the Vikings had a fantastic draft.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the Vikings reaching Stafford and planting him in the turf.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got Green Bay. So I see the Lions not rising up at all.
Their major issue is that every year that Stafford's been in the league, he's gotten hurt.
Yeah. And on top of that, and on top of that, they have to replace both defensive ends from last year. They're both gone.
Yeah. Not only, but I would also say Baltimore didn't address the needs that they needed to draft a successful middle linebacker, someone that was intelligent. They didn't do that.
Well, they did draft a middle linebacker, but it was like in the 3rd round, and of course you already know my feelings about Rolando McClain.
Yeah.
So, but with that said, I would put more faith in what Ozzie Newsome does in Baltimore over what I see in Dallas and Detroit. And with that said, you mentioned your team. I have to mention my team. I think you can run on the Oakland Raiders all day next year. They have not addressed the interior of the defensive line. What they did, and the thing that really bothers me, I understand the point behind the trade. They had the 3 pick, they traded back to 12. I understand the thought process behind it. They had multiple holes to fill. They went defensive back, and they went offensive line in the 2nd round. I think build your team by running the ball and stopping the run. And one of the best ways to stop the run is right at the defensive tackle. And they had one in their crosshairs. They had 2 or 3 in their crosshairs. They had their choice of defensive tackle in their crosshairs, including Sharif Floyd, who granted eventually went 23, so he might have been overrated, including Star Luatelli from Utah. And they traded back and went defensive back. A guy who almost died on the practice field.
Yeah, that was baffling. Like, why? I understand the need for defensive backs, especially good defensive backs, but why get a guy that, as you just plainly said, almost died on a practice field, making a horrible tackle?
It's very scary.
Yeah.
It is. Meanwhile, in Oakland, you have the top 2 defensive tackles. You have 2 guys with combined 12 starts. If you tell me, I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand they think the guy's a playmaker, the defensive back that they drafted, but you tell me how Oakland's going to stop the run. I don't see it. I do not see it.
I hope they can scheme. That's why
they hired that defensive coach to be their head coach. But I hope Dennis Allen. But
I hope they dream up a scheme like the zone block scheme was a decade ago, where everybody was so in love with the zone blitzing scheme.
Yeah. So before we go on to our final takes, let's just move it right out and just put it out there. Dallas, Detroit, Oakland, you're dead. You're not going anywhere this year.
Chicago, you guys, Cleveland, you suck.
By the
Baltimore,
way, do you think Baltimore's going to make it or miss?
I think Baltimore is going to make it to the playoffs, but get blown out in the first round.
Why don't you tell them what's on your mind, brother?
What's on my mind is a funny story that I read online earlier this morning. There's a website, I won't name it, that put together a top 13 list of the most adulterous athletes. On that list, you had such names as Kobe and Tiger Woods. One name they didn't have on was a man that just got married, Michael Jordan.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be faithful now.
Yeah. Michael Jordan just got married last, I think it was Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, I remember reading about it.
Yeah. His wife is hot, by the way.
Of course.
Because,
he's Michael Jordan.
Yeah, he's Michael Jordan. He's worth a shit ton of money. He gets people to buy $300 fucking shoes when it's the same shoes from 1985.
And oh, by the way, he hasn't laced up in a decade.
Yeah. So, of all the people to not be on a list of the most adulterous athletes, keep in mind, they barely wanted to go in with Magic Johnson. They didn't say much, but people, slept with a bunch of women, got AIDS. You say they got married.
Adultery means you still have to be married, though.
Yeah, he was married at the time. He just got married because he contracted HIV.
Oh.
Yeah. Michael
Allegedly.
Allegedly contracted HIV, for which he had to retire. Gambling debts. So I want to say this to Michael Jordan's new wife. I don't know your name. Your name is not important. Nobody will ever know your name. Unless, of course, they start doing Michelle Obama type fucking interviews with you. You are in for the long haul. You have married one of the men that has an ego so big that he would demand another player be kept off his team. He would demand a coach be fired, even though that coach got him to the playoffs. He would demand obedience, or he'd punch Steve Kerr in the face. He would demand a lot. You married a demanding person, and I wish you luck. Good luck with the penicillin. You're gonna need it.
Earlier today, I was catching up on some stories that I had neglected to read over the weekend. Former NBA guard Kenny Anderson, God love him, was arrested for DUI once again. Now, normally, Normally, as you know, I'm the type of guy that when somebody gets arrested, I'd like to poke fun at him, but I feel just tons of mercy for this guy. And it's not just that he played for the completely unwatchable New Jersey Nets or the Boston Celtics. It's because he married Tammy Roman of Basketball Wives in the first place. Otherwise known as the girl who had an abortion on The Real World Season 2 in LA. I'm not one to normally do abortion material, but here's why. If you're the type of girl who thinks reality TV is the perfect place to have your abortion, you are the type of wife who would drive a guy to drink. Yeah. If you're the type of girl who fancies herself to be a musician when she's younger, and now I might add, and you are a woman of color whose song was, I'm a slave, I'm a slave, I'm a slave to your lovin', you are the type of woman that would drive a guy to drink heavily. If your husband has made approximately $60 million and is left to be a coach at a high school because he needs to make ends meet, you are the type of woman who would drive a guy to drink. What I'm trying to say, oh, and by the way, nice tweet saying that you wish him all the best, and not even mentioning his name, I might add. Yeah.
Still paying that check, huh?
Yeah. If your ego is so big that instead of giving your child a normal name, you name the ones that you decided to keep.
Shit.
Lyric and Jazz. You are the type of woman who would drive a guy to drink. So what I'm trying to say is, people, pray for Kenny Anderson. Because despite the fact that she is claiming she will, she's not.
Praying for that check.
Yeah.
And fuck you for what you did to David.
I know, I remember that. I haven't seen him tell jokes, but I